My husband cheated with my son's 18-year-old girlfriend, and I was shocked to discover all of his dirty secrets. I'm going to use pseudonyms for anyone I reference in this post. I, 41 female, am a stay-at-home mom. My husband, 48 male, whom we'll call Paul, works in finance. We have been married for nearly 20 years. We have 2 kids, whom we'll call Eric, our 18-year-old son, currently a senior in high school, and Mary, our 15-year-old daughter. They are both the lights of my life. My marriage with my husband has grown somewhat stale over the years for a myriad of reasons, such as his work schedule and how I've aged poorly since we first met. Our son Eric has a girlfriend, whom he's been dating since they were freshmen in high school. We'll call her Amy. Eric absolutely adores Amy. She's his first love, and she's someone I've always considered as family. This makes the whole situation emotionally excruciating for me. Last week, I inadvertently saw my husband's phone screen and got a glimpse of a text thread between my husband and Amy, our son's girlfriend, and I read what looked like a message of her telling him that she misses eating his sausage. I froze in place in complete disbelief. I spent most of the day convincing myself that I must have misread what I saw. However, I didn't misread it because over the last several days, I discovered a file on his computer filled with tons of BDSM porn. He clearly has a porn addiction. He also has saved photos of Amy from her Instagram on his computer. Although they weren't inappropriate, she was fully clothed. It was still the proof I needed to confirm that I wasn't going crazy. I also looked at his phone during opportune moments and saw more of their interactions. I wish I had never looked. How I inadvertently saw it. He was on his phone. He did not have iMessage open currently on the screen, but the application was still open. You know how on the iPhone when you swipe up, it shows all of the applications that are open and you can close them. When he was closing out the applications, something he does compulsively, I noticed it. It's not like he was some kind of idiotic buffoon having a message open for all to see. I saw he forgot he had the application running when he swiped up from a completely different app. When I first stumbled upon the messages between Paul and Amy, it was like a punch to the gut. I remember sitting there, my hands trembling as I held his phone. The screen lit up with words that felt like slashes across my heart. It wasn't just the shock of betrayal. It was the way they spoke about me. Paul had taken the insecurities I confided in him and turned them into cruel jokes for his amusement with Amy. They were filled with mean, horrible things said at my expense. With him constantly comparing me to her, he would call me fat and old, among other things, with Amy lelling. The messages were sprinkled with emojis and lels, a casual cruelty that made my stomach churn. In one exchange, he'd written, "Can you believe she tried to wear that dress last night? Looked like a sausage trying to burst its casing." Amy replied with a string of laughing emojis and added, "She's so old, she probably thinks it's still in style." And it wasn't just comments about my looks. They talked about my intelligence, my interests, the way I talked. I saw words like boring, dull, and predictable used to describe the life I lived, the life I had built with him. Each message felt like they were erasing the love and respect I thought we had shared for nearly 2 decades. At one point, I read a message from him that said, "At least you're fun. Being with her is like living in slow motion." Amy had replied, "LOL. You need someone who can keep up with you, not slow you down." It was as if I wasn't even a person to them, just a thing that was in their way. An obstacle to joke about as they continued, whatever this was between them. Sitting there with each message, I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and more insignificant. These weren't just idle words. They were a window into how little I meant to the person who was supposed to love me most. And Amy, a girl I had mentored, laughed along with him, bonding over the ridicule they piled on me. The betrayal wasn't just his, it was hers too. A double-edged sword cutting deep. I remember closing the app, the screen going dark, and looking up at our family photos on the wall across the room. The contrast between the smiling, happy faces in those pictures and the scorn in those messages was overwhelming. It was in that moment, surrounded by the echoes of their laughter, that I realized the man I married was not the man smiling in those pictures, and I was left wondering how many times they had shared a laugh at my expense, how many times my pain had been their punchline. I've always had hunches or paranoid feelings that Paul has been cheating on me, but never in a million years could I have fathomed something like this. Last month, I found a thong in our bedroom that I know wasn't mine, nor my daughter's. I turned a blind eye to it, being naive and acting like it was maybe our daughter's, even though that made zero sense. Not only is he cheating on me, but he's betraying our son. I'm completely devastated. I don't even think words can adequately describe the dread, anger, and shock I feel right now. I'm totally overwhelmed on how to handle this, because obviously, action needs to be taken, but I'm terrified of what kind of psychic blow this will be for my son. I have no idea how to even broach this completely up topic with him. I wouldn't wish this predicament on my worst enemy. I can't even believe I married this scumbag in the first place. And then my mind started to race, realizing that I started noticing specifically unusual behavior from him around the same time Amy turned 18. She's been 18 for 5 months now. I haven't been able to gauge when their affair started. I'm trying my hardest to figure that out. He deletes his texts every couple of weeks, it seems like, so I haven't been able to pinpoint when this whole thing started. Was he waiting for her to turn 18 before pursuing this affair? There's so many layers to all of this, and I'm completely paralyzed with fear and dread about it all. None of it makes any sense. How did this happen? Am I that much of a stupid idiot that I let all of this happen under my watch? Eric adores Amy, and the thought of revealing this sickening truth to him terrifies me. The impact on his young heart and mind could be devastating. My heart aches for Eric and Mary, who are completely innocent bystanders. I haven't confronted my husband about this because I'm frankly scared of the domino effect. I don't know who to turn to first about this. I share my story not for sympathy, but in search of understanding and perhaps advice from those who might have had to grapple with deep betrayal. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone, for overwhelming support. I'm sorry if I haven't responded to your private messages. I'll get to it when I can. Dealing with a lot right now and taking a lot of steps that need to be taken. I'm trying to be smart and strategic with this truly surreal and terrible situation I'm in. I want to be clear that not telling my son about this was never something I was considering. I didn't mean to make it seem that way. I was just saying I'm intensely dreading it. But obviously, it needs to be addressed. It's one part of the many steps of my overall plan. I'm currently playing dumb and collecting as much evidence as I can so I can be prepared for anything and everything. I'm going to protect myself, and I'm going to make sure I don't put myself in any potential harm's way. I'll post a more thorough update soon when I can. But please know you've all touched my heart so much and made me feel less alone. Update 1. My brother connected me to a very tough, junkyard dog type lawyer. I saved screenshots of all his conversations with Amy. I was only able to get the last 3 months for my cloud. The conversations were mostly flirty and dirty talk. It was hard to stomach, completely sleazy, and I saw several negative things said about me. His call history showed he talks with her for hours pretty consistently. He uses dating apps. I took screenshots of his profiles and all of the active chats he has with his matches. It's very clear he uses a filter to seek out girls who are 18 to 22 or so. I copied all of his files from the computer. He goes on sex chat rooms and forums, and he spends a ton of money on OnlyFans. I rummaged through every possible hiding spot I could think of in the house. He had various toys, blindfolds, cuffs, lubricants, etc. He also had different outfits which looked kind of like a girl's Catholic school uniform and a French-made type outfit too. I picked up Eric and Mary from school, and we all drove to my brother's. They were able to sense something was off when I picked them up. I delicately told them the entire situation, and I broke down crying. Mary had the most anger, even more than Eric. I met with Amy's mother and told her everything. She confiscated Amy's phone and gave me the entire chat log. It only dated back 3 months, like on my husband's cloud. Almost as if they both deleted the messages at the same time. She told me Amy sobbed when confronted. Amy basically told her mother that she will never understand and that she and him are in love. I don't want to get into too many details with what else she was saying. But suffice to say, it's very easy to assume that my husband slowly and methodically became a sage-like figure in her life, making her feel she could rely on him, and he took advantage of the fact that she came from a broken home. Amy is also nonstop insistent that their friendship only became romantic, physical recently, and before that, she said he was more of a friend and manner. I confronted Paul over Zoom. The moment I hit join on the Zoom call, my heart was hammering in my chest. I could barely hold the mouse steady. As soon as Paul's face popped up on the screen, I knew this wasn't going to be a calm discussion. His face was flushed, his hair disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it all morning, and his eyes, they were wild, darting around before they locked onto the camera. The look on his face was scary. He became red and looked so sweaty. He had anger and panic in his eyes. His tone of voice was very defensive and frightening. I started off trying to keep my voice steady. Paul, we need to talk about what's been going on. Before I could even get another word out, he cut me off. Context. You don't understand the context. He blurted out, his voice loud and shaky. He kept repeating the word like a mantra but never explained what he meant by it. His hands were visibly shaking, gripping what looked like a stack of papers on his desk. I've seen the messages. Paul, I continued, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice, hoping to keep him calm, but it was like I'd lit a fuse. None of that happened. You're making things up, he shouted, his face now a deep shade of red. His voice was so loud, I had to pull the laptop slightly away from me. It was frightening to see him like this, so unhinged. He was not the man I thought I knew. I tried to reason with him. Paul, I have screenshots. I've seen everything. Please, we need to discuss how we're going to handle this situation with the kids. He slammed his fist on the desk, making the camera shake. You have no right to take my kids away from me. You're trying to ruin everything. His tone was accusatory, and each word felt like a verbal assault. I remained where I was, my own hands now trembling. Paul, you need to calm down. We need to figure out a way to. I don't need to calm down. You're the one who is overreacting. You're the one who's destroying our family. His words were almost a growl now, his face so close to the camera that I could see beads of sweat on his forehead. It was then that the real fear set in, the intensity in his eyes, the anger in his voice. It all pointed to a man who was losing control. I realized I wasn't just dealing with infidelity, but with someone who could potentially be a danger to me and the kids. His demeanor was threatening, almost as if he was right there in the room with me, ready to explode. He kept yelling the word context over and over again, and that none of that happened. He was unable to speak without constant stutters and intensity. Nothing really made any sense to me. I refused to tell him where I was, and he said I had no right to take his kids away from him. I'm ending this call, Paul. We will talk later when you're able to discuss this calmly, I said. My voice barely a whisper. You can't just hang up on me. You can't just. But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I ended the call, my heart pounding in my ears. Then he abruptly left the Zoom, sitting there, staring at the blank screen. I knew that this was far more serious than I had initially thought. His reaction was not just defensive, it was volatile. I picked up my phone immediately and called my lawyer, explaining the urgency and the need for a restraining order. The level of aggression he'd shown was enough proof that I needed to protect myself and my kids. That call was supposed to be about confrontation and truth, but it turned into a chilling revelation of the depth of Paul's anger and instability. It was clear that this wasn't just about heartbreak or betrayal anymore. It was about safety. My lawyer is filing for temporary sole custody of Mary and a restraining order. Mary is still the most angry. She's totally furious with her dad and Amy. Justifiably so, of course. Mary is recollecting moments in time she watched her dad interact with her friends, and she's in knots about it. Eric is very clearly hurting, but he's so strong and very level-headed. He wants to see a therapist. The maturity my kids are showing makes me proud. They don't deserve this at all. Eric hasn't spoken to Amy yet since finding out the news, and I'm not sure if he ever will again. Both me and my son are going to get tested and checked out as well. There's no telling how many different women he's been sleeping around with. As for Amy, her mom has been in contact with me, and Amy has been threatening to run away with him because they are in love. We made the authorities aware of everything. I plan on being completely unforgiving and ruthless in this divorce. I'm reflecting on how I've been treated and how it's made me a shell of myself and how I've had a very negative opinion of myself because of him over the last 20 years. I don't want to let this scumbag get away with it. I want to reinvent myself and move on stronger than ever. Update 2. Thank you again for all the love and encouragement. It gives me comfort and means so much to me. I've received many comments and messages accusing me of faking this story, which oddly also provides comfort because all of this feels unreal even to me. It validates my own feelings that there are people out there who can't even fathom this being true. I wish it were fake. I've been focusing on and worrying about how others are feeling over this, somewhat ignoring my own feelings, which I'm trying to change. I range from anger to numbness like a light switch. We're all safe and still at my brother's house. We're very careful, and his house is secured. Paul has tried to call my cell phone several times a day. I am refusing to interact with him, and I will have my lawyer handle all correspondence. He scares me, frankly. My brother has a very secure house with an alarm system and deadbolt locks. We feel safe with him. Both my son and I got checked out and tested. It appears so far that we're both clean based on the immediate rapid tests, but in the coming days, we'll know for certain when the lab results come in. I'm not overly concerned. We've set up an appointment with a therapist for him next week, which I'm relieved about. He needs someone to talk to, someone professional who can help him navigate through this maze of hurt and betrayal he's found himself in. It's not just the betrayal itself, but who's behind it. His father, someone he looked up to, and Amy, who was practically part of our family. That's a lot for anyone, let alone an 18-year-old, he's not himself right now. He seemed a bit shell-shocked, and I am concerned he internalizes a lot, and it's hard to get a read on what's going on in his head. Despite his own turmoil, Eric's concern for me has been touching, almost heart-wrenching. He often asks, "How are you holding up, Mom?" His voice carries a maturity that it shouldn't have at his age. It's clear he's trying to shoulder some of my burden too, to be strong for both of us, but I can see it's wearing on him. Every so often, I catch that look in his eyes, a mix of sadness and resolve that no child should have to bear towards their parents. He's not interested in corresponding with his dad at all. He calls only my cell phone. He hasn't tried to contact Eric or Mary, which is both a relief and a deep cut. It's as if, with everything out in the open, he doesn't know how to face them or chooses not to. Eric doesn't seem interested in reaching out either. When I mentioned his dad the other day, there was a brief flash of something like anger, or maybe pain in his eyes before he quickly masked it with neutrality. "I don't have anything to say to him right now," he said, and left it at that. I get the sense that Paul is extremely nervous. He's scared, and I think he deep down knows that if investigated thoroughly, he would be in big trouble. That's what my gut is telling me. I still think about the Zoom call with him, and the more I think about it, the more it looked like he was a man whose entire world was crashing down on him. The panic in his face was very apparent. I offered Mary for me to make an appointment with a therapist as well, but she doesn't want to see one yet. She said she's open to it eventually, but wants time to herself. She's been asking her friends about her dad and if they experience any creepiness from him. Her friends were open and honest with her, and apparently, they felt like he stared a lot and sensed his hovering presence whenever they were over. One of Mary's friends went so far as to say that she felt like he was checking her out a lot, like looking at her rear and complimenting the color of her yoga pants at the time. No issue was brought up about it, but in light of everything that has been happening, it seems strange now. He would sit himself in different areas or vantage points to get a good view of her. She claimed he also asked questions about what kind of friend group or which clique they were in at school. He kept asking about if they were popular girls. I'm completely embarrassed that they had this experience at our house. As for updates on Amy, which is the main reason why I wanted to write this update, I completely agree that she is also a victim. A lot of people have been emphasizing that, and I agree. I've done everything I could in my own power to indirectly get her opportunities to get help. Like I said, I told her mother, and she's been updating me on everything. Amy, unfortunately, is still living in her deluded reality, and I can only pray that she eventually come to her senses. She doesn't want to see any doctors or therapists at all and has been constantly trying to reach Paul because, again, she believes that they are in love. From what I've been told, she hasn't been able to get hold of him, and he's been avoiding communication with her completely. Amy blames me for that and believes I took away his devices and I'm very controlling. Any truth that her mother tries to convey to her is met with conspiracy theories and hostility. Amy looks at me as a villain and still sees Paul through rose-colored glasses. Her mother showed her screenshots of his dating app profiles and matches, and she refuses to believe it, saying I photoshopped it. According to her mom, Amy keeps saying things like, everyone is just mad because she found herself a real man, and that I'm jealous because she takes better care of him than I do. It's in line with some of the conversations I screenshot where a lot of what Paul says is him complaining about things I don't do for him sexually right now. She's insistent that she and Paul will be together in the long run. He's honestly a slimeball. I believe stuff happened before she was 18 too. I'm not sure when things got actually physical or romantic, but I do think his grooming started as soon as she came into the picture. When Eric started dating her freshman year, this mentor and a friend that Amy alluded to had to start right away, and the way she's acting now, being so indebted and believing every single thing he says, shows that his effect on her had to be over a long period of time. She only turned 18 like 5 months ago. Her behavior and infatuation for him seemed so strong that it couldn't possibly be only 5 months of them being together. The only thing we can really hang our hat on is the possibility of Amy having an epiphany of the reality of her situation, and she opens up candidly about when it began. But because she's 18 currently and has no interest in saying or doing anything that could potentially put Paul in legal trouble, nothing really can be done unless they find out about other girls that I have no idea about yet. I can only hope that Amy comes to her senses, but me directly intervening doesn't feel like it would be productive at the moment. Maybe eventually, though. Update 3, April 8th, 2024. The support, again, has been overwhelming, and I'm very grateful. Sadly, I've received a lot of negative, accusatory, and harassing private messages from people here who think I'm faking this story. Someone made a comment on some post somewhere claiming that my story has been debunked, and people believe that person. I've seen an uptick in negative messages accusing me of making this up for money. I'm not asking for money at all. Coming here was completely rooted in emotional desperation, and I didn't expect anyone to get invested in my story this way. But again, I'm not looking for anything out of this. I have no reason to lie. I'm not gaining anything from this. If you don't believe me, that's fine. I don't care. But the only thing I ask is to not cross the line and start sending me private messages that are mean-spirited or accusatory. The only reason I'm continuing to post is because of those of you who've sent me love here, and the support really lifted my spirits. As for the divorce, it's very much underway. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it all because it's ongoing, and I want to make sure everything is going to go smoothly. I got temporary custody of Mary. Paul also has to pay temporary child support. There's a protective order. Paul can't contact us or come near us right now. We're just focusing on getting through this legal mess. Again, not getting into specifics because I don't want to mess anything up. But what I'll say is I'm very confident, divorce aside, that there's overwhelming evidence against Paul that will get him in serious trouble, and it will impact him for the rest of his life. I'm sure eventually I can share more about that. I know a lot of people are concerned about his predatory ways, and I just wanted to convey this. Even though I have to be vague right now, justice will come. All of your concern about how my kids are doing psychologically means a lot to me. Eric has been to therapy twice over the last 2 weeks. I know some people thought I was dismissive of him and acting like he's doing okay. I very much know that he's hurting internally, and we're doing everything we can to make sure he knows he is supported and loved. My brother has been amazing in spending time with Eric and Mary, and both of them have confided in him about a lot. My brother has a very healthy marriage, and both he and his wife have really stepped up to the plate for all of us. Mary has not seen a therapist yet, but she promises that she will be open to seeing one soon. Her anger has mostly turned into sadness, I noticed, and I hope I can get her to see a therapist soon. Her friends have played a key role in this whole thing, and that's something that Mary has been grappling with as well. I know a lot of people are invested in the well-being of Amy as well. There were a lot of questions about whether Eric and Amy would still see each other at school. It sounded like they go to the same school, but they do not. Eric and Amy went to the same junior high school and knew each other even then, but Amy ended up going to an all-girls Catholic high school, while Eric and Mary stayed in the public school system. We all lived in the same town, and over the summer heading into freshman year, when they were getting to know each other and when they started dating. I wish I had a better Amy update, but it's gotten a lot worse since the last update. After everything blew up, Paul has actually been seeing Amy despite her mother trying to force her not to see him. She tells me that Amy says she's 18 and an adult, and she can do what she wants. Amy thinks she's grown, her mother confided to me just yesterday, her voice laced with frustration and worrying. She keeps telling me she's 18 and an adult, and she can make her own decisions. Her voice sounded exhausted, trapped in an impossible situation. Her mother is in a precarious spot, because if she kicks Amy out of the house for defying her something that she has threatened to do, which I think is a mistake, she would just run to Paul permanently. The time she spends with Paul has increased over the last week, despite the fact that Paul initially ghosted her when all of this first hit the fan. There were some days where Amy would just be gone for hours on end. Her mother tried grounding her, taking away her car keys, even limiting her phone use, but Amy found ways around every barrier. She's sneaking out at night, her mother told me, her voice breaking. I wake up at 3 a.m. and her room is empty. She won't tell me where she's been, but I just know it's with him. I can't help but feel a mix of anger and sorrow for Amy. She's caught in this toxic cycle, believing she's in a relationship when it's clear she's being used. Paul has not changed. His patterns are the same, only the target has shifted. The worst part is feeling so helpless about it all. I've suggested therapy, talked about getting her professional help, but Amy is stubborn, blinded by what she thinks is love. It's heartbreaking and infuriating at the same time. There's only so much I could do with the Amy situation, but again, I do believe things will turn around soon with that, given what I know about Paul and what's to come. I can only pray that Amy can get help and guidance when more hits the fan. I'm doing everything I can with my own kids and my own mental health, and Amy's mom knows she has my support, and that's all I could really provide. Entitled Sil demanded I gift her a baby for her 30th birthday, so I exposed her ridiculousness and immaturity to everyone on social media. I'm not sure if anyone can relate to my dilemma or has even heard of it. It feels strange to even write this. It's about my Mill and Sil, who are pampered brats. SIL is 29 and a single woman. Well, that's not the issue. The issue is that she is an entitled woman who will not accept no as an answer. I am 37 years old and have been married to my 40-year-old husband for 12 years. We have 2 children, a 9-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. Despite our blissful marriage, touch wood, my pain in the neck is my overly theatrical Mill and my overly spoiled Sil. Before I tell you more about my position, let me paint a picture of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They are social butterflies, similar to upper-class rich ladies in soap operas, who spend their days at salons and massage parlors and their evenings at bars chatting about other useless women. They exist in their own fantasy universe. They do not work. All they do is shop and chat. My Phil is busy generating money while these women are busy spending it. FIL is essentially a non-existent part of the family, or rather, a cash cow. There's a rumor that Phil has a mistress, and Mill is aware of it, so they have an unspoken agreement. He fulfills all of their demands without question in exchange for having a mistress. I am not sure how true it is, but given FIL's status in the family, it appears likely. Otherwise, no sensible man would be silent about Mill and Sil's foolishness. Now, back to my sad existence. Last week, Mill called and invited me out to lunch on a Wednesday afternoon. I wanted to say no, but she hadn't requested to meet with me in a long time, so I suggested an alternate schedule. I suggested that we meet for dinner in the evening, but they are busy women at night, spending time with friends at the gaming parlor. So, we decided to meet on Saturday afternoon. I arrived in my usual attire, whereas she wore a completely shimmering black dress. What a great pick for an afternoon lunch. She critiqued my fashion sense the moment she saw me. After the light talk, she inquired about what we intended to give myself for her 30th birthday. I was perplexed because her 29th birthday was just a few months ago. I mentioned her next birthday is around 10 months away. She laughed and continued, "That's why we need to plan ahead of time. Remember what happened last time. She was dissatisfied with the gifts you gave her, and her birthday was spoiled." I swallowed hard and said, "Yeah, of course. We spoiled her birthday because we gave her a normal $250 dress and not a premium Zara one with a matching sapphire necklace." She went on to elaborate, "To avoid upsetting her this time, I have thought of the perfect gift, which you guys should give her." So, what was that? A baby, that's right. She wanted me to make a baby and give it to her entitled brat of a daughter. I was appalled. How could anyone believe that someone would ask for a baby as a gift? I could not understand what she was saying. I had to ask her several times if I had heard it correctly. She responded, "Yes. I want you to have a baby and give it to Stacy S. as her 30th birthday present." I flipped out and said, "Why do you think I would do that?" She cried. "To compensate for your inadequate present. This time you wrecked her 29th birthday, and now you owe her this." I stood up and stated, "I don't owe anyone anything. I'm not a broodmare who would breed a child and give it to her." I stormed out of the restaurant. On the way home, I stopped to pick up my son from his friend's house. When I got home, my husband questioned what had happened between me and Mill. I asked him what he'd been told. My husband is aware of Mill and Sil's tantrums, so he does not take them seriously. He explained, "Do you want that, for a brief while?" He assumed I was joking and making everything up. He was laughing and rolling on the floor as I told him the full story. Then, alarmed, he asked, "What is she even smoking?" I made it obvious to him that I would not accept her demands. My husband reassured me, "We are not having any more children, and we are definitely not giving one to Stacy." The following day was Sunday. We were both at home, relaxing on the couch and enjoying our day off when Mill arrived at our house. I excused myself and went to my room, explaining that I was exhausted and needed to rest. Mill stopped me and said she came here to apologize for the previous day and begged me to hear her out. I was relieved that she had finally come to her senses. She apologized for not providing enough context in her request, She went on to explain, "You know Stacy is turning 30 next year and has been unmarried for a long time. It is driving her insane. She requires a distraction in life, and having a baby would be an excellent way to keep her happy. First and foremost, a newborn is a fully fledged human being, not cotton candy brought in to keep children happy. If the spoiled brat requires distractions or a purpose in life, why doesn't she find a job?" But no, the princess does not work. She doesn't move a finger about the house, by the way. She still lives with my in-laws, because she has no income. She avoids home duties because her nails would get chipped. If you meet her, you'll notice that her brain hasn't developed since her 14th birthday. Her room's paint is still pink, and she has a large collection of pink outfits. She knows nothing about the world around her. She will be unfamiliar with the capital city or the country's president. All she knows is that a large sum of money suddenly arrives on her card, which she recklessly spends. I responded, "If Stacy is so keen on having a baby, why doesn't she adopt one?" My Mill laughed and said, "Don't be lazy. It's been a while since you were pregnant, so get the equipment back to work. Adopted newborns pose a significant risk. Who knows what diseases run in their family? It's safe with you folks. Can't you do this for your S?" I looked at my spouse as if to plead, "Would you please say something?" He chuckled and called Mill's suggestion stupid. He stated that I had a lot of motherly responsibilities, as well as a career to manage, and that I couldn't have another baby in the thick of it all. He also commented on how strange it would be if her brother was the father of her child. My mother-in-law simply replied, "Why not? Maria's sister-in-law was a surrogate for her daughter. So, what's the big deal if your wife is the same for Stacy?" I was like, wait a minute, that was surrogacy. Maria's sister-in-law carried Maria's daughter's child because she was unable to conceive owing to medical reasons. Here, things are not the same. If Stacy had a medical concern, we might have offered to help her carry the baby. The situation here is different. You're asking us to make a baby as if we were a machine. My partner had advised Stacy should find a guy, settle down with him, and have her own family rather than complicating the situation here. Mil began sobbing and lamented, "My little girl has tried so many times to find a man, but you know how awful men are these days." She pointed at me and said, "Seydu, a lucky woman to have my son, but sweetheart, not everyone is as fortunate as you. Stacy can't be with just any regular man. You know she has great expectations. The man should treat her like we do." I responded, "Yeah, of course. The last man Stacy dumped was because he didn't buy her an overly expensive Gucci bag." Mill attempted to justify her pampered princess, but I jumped up and stated, "I'm nauseated from this discussion and need to relax. Once more, we will not have a child to give Sil as a birthday present." After a time, my spouse entered the bedroom. He cuddled me and attempted to lighten my melancholy. I asked him what he had told his mother. He told me that he had made it plain that we would not have any more children and that they should quit harassing us. He claimed Mill stormed out of the house in rage. Can you imagine how ridiculous this situation is? I want to bang my head against a wall or bang theirs to make them see sense. Update 1. Hello, everyone, and thank you for connecting with my post. Some of the comments were just amusing. You're correct in stating that Stacy is psychologically something. I feel the same way. Both Stacy and Mill need to have their heads checked. Perhaps they were buried under pounds of makeup. LOL. If there had been any other regular person, they would have backed off after the previous talk. But now we're dealing with two maniacs. Until recently, it was just Mill, but Stacy has also gotten involved. I tell you, she is 100 times more difficult to talk to since she does not grasp logic. As I said in my previous report, Mil wrecked my Sunday with her baby-making pitch. A week later, on the following Sunday, bam, she appears again with her adorable doll. They seem to have promised to destroy my day off. Stacy entered wearing a skirt and a comfortable blouse. This was the first time I had seen her without her very tiny clothes, and her hair and nails were flawless. Mill pointed and asked, "Do you see? Stacy has already begun dressing like a mama." So, this was the cause for her new fashion sense. Do they truly believe that changing your clothes will make you a mommy? Change your clothes, and you are ready to be a mother. Stacy smirked at me and replied, "I'm in whatever I do." Then she went to hug her older brother as if she hadn't seen him in a long time. "Remember," I said, "she acts like a 14-year-old sweetie pie." She cried as if we were all standing far apart. "When is the good news coming?" My husband appeared foolish and asked, "What's the good news?" She smirked and added, "I know you want to surprise me with your kid for my 30th birthday, but Mom is a spoiler. I now know what your plan is. I'm overjoyed to be the mother of a gorgeous little girl. I have already started buying for her." My husband interrupted her mid-sentence, and I'm glad he did, because I was going to slap her skull. He said, "That is not true. We're not having a baby, much less giving one as a present." For a long time, she assumed he was merely attempting to mask the surprise. How delusional can you be? When she discovered she wasn't getting a kid as a gift, she screamed at me, "Why not? You have always been harsh to me. This is your time to set things right. Come on, get a nice tiny baby doll for me." I answered, "Stacy, we don't run a baby supply company where you can purchase a gorgeous baby girl and receive one. Do you even know how babies are made?" She relaxed and confessed, "You know, I've always wanted a baby girl. I have so much love in me that I want to shower it on my baby. You're all depriving me of that. That baby will be really lucky to have me as her mother. I will raise her to be a confident and accomplished woman. I am confident that you will not be disappointed. You see, that is why I said you couldn't reason with her. This is mindless. First and foremost, do you believe she is in the appropriate mind to have a baby? She doesn't even realize that I have no control over my baby's gender. You don't get to choose as you would with a lipstick palette. Second, this witch has never carried a baby in her arms. When my children were babies, she used to chase them away, afraid they might spit and stain her hair and clothes. Even now, she won't let my daughter near her because she's terrified she'd damage her nails or hair. Can anyone envision this mother changing a diaper or swaddling a baby in the middle of the night? Furthermore, I cannot go through a torturous 9 months of pregnancy, then experience the agonizing pain of birth, only to hand over my child to this spoiled princess and watch her transform the baby into a miniature version of herself. Stacy was still rambling on about how she'd be an excellent mother, but I had lost myself in the sentiments I'd expressed above. Suddenly, I stood up and said, "Look, Stacy, I know you're going to hate me for this. You already hate me. So it doesn't matter. I am not going to have a baby for you. Do you understand it? Or should I write it down for you? Because it appears that you and your mother have lost both your hearing and your mind." My husband motioned for me to calm down, but I had lost my mind with their madness. I told them I didn't want to talk about it any further, and if they kept bothering me, I'd block them from my residence. I went into my room and closed the door. I'm not sure if I overstepped my boundaries, but look at them. I cannot put into words how toxic they are. My husband tried to indicate that I was being too outspoken, but I was so upset with everyone that he didn't dare say anything else. He just informed me that his mother and sister had called him an ass and then departed. I don't care what people say, he has to quit being a nice guy to everyone. I was expecting another showdown this Sunday, but it's been quiet so far, and I hope it continues. I just want this inconvenience to cease. Update 2. Oh no, how could I have thought things would end so peacefully? Following the explosion, the next 2 weeks were quiet and tranquil. I felt so at ease without Mill showing up at our door. But God, it wasn't silent at all. There was a flurry of activity going on online that I was completely unaware of. Stacy had been defaming me on social media, alleging that I was taking away her chance to become a mother. She describes herself as a beauty guru and posts makeup tutorials. She has a respectable following on her account, I'm not extremely active on social media because I have a life outside of the screen, with 2 children and a real job. Anyway, Stacy said that her brother was game to have a baby for her, but I denied it. She stated that she has always wanted to be a mother, but because she is unmarried, she has had no luck with adoption. Such a lie, they never even attempted to adopt, and if they had, I'm sure she would have failed the adoption interview. Stacy said a lot of things to put me in a negative light. She said I was denying her a kid because she was unmarried and I held conservative, old-fashioned attitudes. I wanted to say that I was denying her the kid because she was stupid. I had no idea about her hatred campaign until my husband's aunt called and asked why I was doing this to Stacy. That was when I read everything. It was amusing how her foolish friends and relatives made me out to be the villain. Even if what she said is accurate, I have the right to say no. It is my body and I may refuse. My husband encouraged me to ignore it, that it will pass like a season. I originally ignored it, but how can you not read public comments made against you? We are not that thick-skinned. I understood Stacy saw my quiet as weakness and was trash-talking me even more. My buddies and I devised a strategy to make Stacy pay for her actions. I called her and said, "I'm very concerned about the web campaign you're waging against me. The negativity is destroying my reputation. So I'm considering having a child for you." Yeah, I said it to please her ego. My reputation is ruined. I don't care what she or her foolish followers think of me, but she deserved to be put in her proper place. She's been a pain in my side for a long time, and it's finally time to deal with her. I responded, "Stacy, why don't you come over and we can discuss a few things before we proceed?" She was ecstatic, believing she had defeated me. When she came to my place, I replied, "Since I've agreed to your demands, why don't we go live and tell everyone you're having a baby soon? It would help to clear up any poor reviews, and you'd get a nice viewing time." She agreed right away because she enjoys social networking. We went live, and I said, "I have agreed to have a baby for Stacy, so let's take some questions for the future mom." Stacy was so pleased with her victory that she had no idea what she was heading into. I responded, "So, Stacy, what plans do you have for the baby?" She giggled and exclaimed, "Oh, I'm so delighted to be a mother to a baby girl. I had already started buying for her. I'm going to make her look like a celebrity from the moment she's born. I will never leave her without makeup. She will always have to appear perfect and acceptable." I didn't explicitly state that no one could guarantee she'd have a baby girl, but I let the audience educate her on the subject. Her response had already outraged many people, and the video was filled with harsh comments and trolls. Stacy was so focused on expressing herself that she missed everything else. I replied, "That's lovely, Stacy, but what about when the baby is fussy and crying? How are you going to handle that?" She responded, "The girls in our family do not cry, do they? I mean, I have never seen your daughter weep. She's always well-dressed and calm." Without making her feel silly, I said, "That's because you've only seen her for a short time. Every baby cries. Every tidy, well-dressed infant is the result of many hours of hard effort by the mother." Her answer was, "Then you can take care of the crying, and when she's calm, I'll dress her up in cute frilly dresses and matching necklaces and tiaras, and I'll put makeup on her." I couldn't stop giggling and told Stacy, "Babies cry all day and night. Are you suggesting you'll bring her to me every time she cries, and then take her back after she's finished?" She exclaimed, "Yes, that's correct. Why not?" I could no longer pretend and let out an evil laugh. She responded, "Are you trying to scare me off? How difficult could it be? You did it, and I can do it too? I am so much better than you. I have more followers and a better fashion sense than you." She abruptly ended the live video while ranting. She was angry at me for grilling her on live camera, but she had no idea how much damage it had done to her. She stated, "We're game for the baby," as she walked away. I smiled calmly. My friend taped the entire live session. I wrote a lengthy essay detailing how Stacy and her mother had been pressuring me to have a child and give it to her as a birthday present. I methodically underlined all of the red flags that indicated why Stacy should not be trusted with a child. Her responses during the live stream were enough to let folks realize what an air-headed woman she is. I stated all of the additional things regarding Stacy that were not included in her responses. I tagged her in the post and shared it after midnight, thinking the princess would be sleeping. She'd wake up the next day, and by the time she untagged herself, thousands of people would have seen the message. As expected, my post went viral, owing to Stacy's followers tagging her in the post, allowing her fans to troll her extensively with comments such as, "How could someone with such a low IQ even exist on this planet?" A single comment said, "Forget about being a mother. This woman shouldn't be left alone on the streets." Following this internet argument, my mother-in-law called me. Before she could say anything, I told her, "Before you say anything, please know that you are being recorded, and I will not hesitate to post it publicly." My God. She hung up and did not call back. I didn't hear from the pampered princess again because I warned them that I was going to record all of their calls and conversations as well as any attempts to make trouble at my place. It was quite satisfying to put them in their place. My husband and I are still giggling while reading the haters' comments on Stacy's video. It's just hilarious. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.